There are moments when nothing needs to begin. They are already here before you notice them. Not created, not invited, not prepared. They appear when effort stops shaping experience. At first, attention continues its usual movement, a subtle tendency to organize, to orient, to lean toward what might follow. This tendency is familiar. It has been useful for a long time, but here it has nothing to attach to. There is no sequence forming, no next step announcing itself, no outcome waiting to be reached. Gradually, that forward motion softens, not because it is forced to stop, but because it has nowhere to go. The moment does not resist this shift. It does not guide it either. It remains unchanged. This lack of change is steady. Nothing improves. Nothing declines. Experience settles into itself without direction. Thoughts continue to appear, as they always do. They surface lightly. They do not assemble into plans. They do not link into conclusions. Without urgency, they lose momentum. Without momentum, they become quiet. There is no need to dismiss them, no need to follow them. They are allowed to remain unfinished. In this allowance, something subtle stabilizes. Not a realization, not a breakthrough, just an absence of pressure. The body senses it first. Breathing remains unaltered. It does not require adjustment. Posture does not demand correction. Nothing is being held tightly enough to release. It is simply not tense. Awareness stays present, but without scanning. There is no evaluation of how this feels, no internal measurement. The question of whether this is right does not arise. It has no relevance here. The moment does not ask to be understood. Understanding would imply distance. Instead, it remains immediate. Time continues to move, but without emphasis. Seconds are not counted. They pass without being marked. This is not an altered state. It does not feel elevated. It feels ordinary. And that ordinariness is important because nothing here depends on intensity. Nothing depends on depth. Nothing depends on insight. The experience does not try to become meaningful. It simply exists without commentary. There is no center to maintain. Identity feels lighter, not removed, just less active. Experience unfolds without needing a reference point. Nothing stands out as more important. Nothing recedes as less relevant. Everything shares the same quiet presence. This equality creates ease, not ease as pleasure, but ease as absence of strain. The mind rests in this absence. It does not withdraw. It does not focus sharply. It remains available. There is no anticipation of what comes next. Anticipation would suggest movement toward something. Here, nothing moves toward anything. The moment does not prepare. It does not resolve. It remains open without feeling incomplete. This openness does not ask to be protected. It does not collapse if attention shifts briefly. It does not require maintenance. That resilience feels reassuring. It suggests that presence is stable on its own. No effort sustains it. No technique produces it. It is simply here when nothing interferes. There is no desire to define what is happening. Definition would narrow it. This does not need to be remembered. It does not need to be repeated. It does not depend on continuation. For now, it is sufficient. Nothing is being added. Nothing is being removed. Nothing is progressing. Nothing is delayed. Staying happens without decision. Attention remains because there is no reason to leave. The simplicity of this may feel unfamiliar. Life often moves toward meaning, toward direction, toward refinement. Here, none of that applies. The moment does not improve itself. It does not measure its own value. It does not compare itself to another. Without comparison, there is nothing to achieve. Without achievement, there is nothing to fail. This neutrality feels steady, not dramatic, not profound, just steady. Awareness spreads gently, without narrowing. Nothing is highlighted. Nothing is ignored. Experience holds itself evenly. There is no sense of waiting. Waiting implies something else is required. Nothing else is required. The moment stands complete without completion, open without lack, present without effort. For now, there is nothing to reach, and nothing needs to be done with this. There is a point where even effort becomes quiet, not because it disappears, but because it finds nothing to hold on to. The mind may still look for something to do, a subtle task, a direction, a purpose forming somewhere just ahead, but nothing forms. No next step rises, no expectation gathers. And without something to organize around, attention loosens its structure. It does not collapse. It does not drift away. It simply stops arranging. This lack of arrangement feels unfamiliar at first. Most moments are shaped by intention, by planning, by correction. Here, intention is absent. Nothing is being improved. Nothing is being prepared. Nothing is being resolved. Thoughts continue to pass through. They are not blocked. They are not silenced. They simply fail to connect. Without connection, they do not build momentum. Without momentum, they do not demand continuation. Each thought stands alone, complete in its brief appearance, free to leave unfinished. There is no need to complete it, no need to carry it forward. This absence of continuity creates space, not empty space, open space, the kind that does not close in. Awareness rests differently here. It does not focus sharply. It does not scan for relevance. It spreads gently, allowing everything to exist without highlighting anything in particular. Nothing stands out as more important. Nothing recedes as less relevant. Experience becomes even, balanced without design. There is no inner commentary asking whether this is productive. No quiet voice measuring progress. Measurement requires comparison. Comparison requires reference. There is no reference point here. The moment does not compare itself to another. It does not compete for value. It simply remains. Without urgency, time feels less defined. Seconds are not tracked. They move without accumulation. There is no sense of being early, no sense of being late. Nothing is moving toward completion. Nothing is delayed. This neutrality feels steady, not dramatic, not profound, just steady. The body responds before the mind explains it. Breathing continues on its own rhythm. Muscles remain unguarded. There is no preparation for interruption. Nothing suggests that something else should happen. In the absence of direction, identity softens slightly. Not removed, just less involved. There is no need to defend it, no need to strengthen it, no need to improve it. Without pressure, it rests. Judgment becomes unnecessary. There is nothing to evaluate, no right version of this moment, no wrong version, no better outcome hidden beneath it. The moment does not ask to be deepened. It does not ask to be extended. It does not ask to be remembered. It is complete without completion. Awareness stays, not because it must, but because there is no reason to leave. Leaving implies somewhere else. Somewhere else implies preference. Preference implies movement. Movement implies dissatisfaction. There is no dissatisfaction here. Nothing needs correction. Nothing needs adjustment. Even if a thought briefly returns with weight, It loses force quickly. There is nothing for it to attach to, no structure to enter, no plan to modify. It passes without resistance. This passing does not feel like letting go. It feels like nothing being held. The difference is subtle, but important. Letting go suggests effort. Here, effort is unnecessary. Experience sustains itself. It does not depend on attention being perfect. It does not require stillness. It does not require silence. It continues evenly. There is no need to make sense of this. Sense-making introduces direction. Direction introduces outcome. Outcome introduces tension. None of that is active. For now, there is only continuation, not towards something, not away from something, just continuation. And in that continuation, nothing is lacking. Nothing is arriving. Nothing is required. For now, that is enough. At some point, even the sense of observing begins to soften. Not completely, just enough. There is still awareness, but it feels less centered, less located. Experience continues, yet it does not feel like it belongs to someone. Thoughts still appear. They pass through in the same quiet way. But they are no longer framed as mine in the same way. They simply arise. They simply dissolve. Without ownership, they lose weight. The usual reference point, the one that measures, evaluates, reacts, is quieter now, not removed, just resting. There is no need to confirm that you are here. Presence does not require identification. It does not ask for a name. The moment unfolds without needing a center. This does not feel distant. It does not feel detached. It feels neutral. There is less contrast between inside and outside, less separation between thought and sensation. Everything shares the same quiet field. Nothing claims importance. Nothing claims priority. Without priority, attention does not tighten. It remains wide, not unfocused, just even. Time continues to pass, but it feels less personal. It does not move toward your plans. It does not move away from your history. It simply moves, and you are not required to manage it. The body remains present. Breathing continues. There is no effort to maintain stillness, no effort to deepen it. Even the idea of deepening has faded. Depth implies direction. Direction implies movement towards something. There is nothing to move toward. The moment does not promise improvement. It does not promise insight. It does not promise calm. It simply remains as it is, and that is enough. There is a subtle easing in not needing to define this. Definition would narrow it. It would place it inside boundaries. Here, boundaries feel unnecessary. Experience is allowed to be undefined. Without definition, there is less pressure. Without pressure, identity relaxes further. There is no need to defend a position, no need to strengthen a perspective, no need to hold a viewpoint. Thoughts can appear without forming a stance. They do not argue. They do not insist. They pass quietly. The sense of self does not disappear. It simply becomes less active, like a voice that pauses when it has nothing to add. There is no absence here, only quiet participation. Awareness does not cling to anything. It does not avoid anything. It rests evenly. Without resistance, experience flows smoothly. Not because it is guided, because nothing obstructs it. Even small sensations pass through without emphasis. They are neither amplified nor dismissed. They exist briefly, then shift. Nothing is held long enough to form tension. Nothing stays long enough to demand reaction. The absence of reaction feels steady, not numb, not distant, just steady. There is no need to protect this state. Protection implies fragility. This does not feel fragile. It does not depend on silence. It does not depend on perfect stillness. It remains stable even when small thoughts return, even when attention shifts slightly. That stability is quiet reassurance. It suggests that presence does not require effort. It does not require maintenance. It does not require performance. For now, experience continues without center, without urgency, without direction. Nothing is being gained. Nothing is being lost. Nothing is being achieved. Nothing is being avoided. There is simply this, open, even, undisturbed. And for now, that is enough. Over time, the steadiness no longer feels new. It does not stand out as something unusual. It feels closer to neutral ground. A tension remains present, but without leaning. There is no forward motion forming, no backward pull either. The sense of before and after feels less relevant. The moment does not sit between 2 points. It stands on its own. Thoughts may briefly return with clarity, a plan, a memory, a quiet reminder of something unfinished, but they do not anchor. They appear, pause, and lose their grip. Without reinforcement, they dissolve naturally. There is no effort required to let them go. Letting go would imply resistance. Here, resistance is minimal. The mind seems less interested in maintaining structure, less interested in building continuity. Each fragment of experience exists independently, not disconnected, just not linked. This lack of linkage creates space, not empty space, open space, the kind that does not demand filling. There is no need to check whether this is still happening. No need to confirm stability. Stability feels inherent. Even if attention shifts slightly, the overall tone remains unchanged. That resilience is subtle. It suggests that presence does not require control. It does not need supervision. Breathing continues at its own pace. It does not deepen intentionally. It does not slow on command. It simply moves. The body feels less involved in shaping experience, less engaged in preparation. There is no bracing for interruption, no subtle tightening in anticipation of change. If change were to occur, it would be absorbed, not resisted. The moment does not defend itself. It does not guard its quiet. It remains open. This openness does not feel exposed. It feels steady. Nothing presses in from outside. Nothing pushes from within. Experience unfolds evenly. Without contrast, evaluation fades. There is no sense of improvement, no sense of decline, no measurement of depth. The mind does not attempt to enhance this. Enhancement would imply lack. There is no lack being felt. The absence of urgency continues, not as something achieved, but as something no longer necessary. Urgency has no task here. Expectation has no object. There is nothing forming that requires attention. Attention rests because it has nowhere else to move. Time continues quietly. It does not accumulate into progress. It does not build toward a result. It passes without leaving residue. Identity remains present but unassertive. There is no need to reinforce it, no need to refine it, no need to adjust it. It participates lightly, almost transparently. There is no internal commentary asking whether this is correct, no comparison to previous moments, no anticipation of future ones. Each second stands complete in itself. Completion here does not feel final. It feels sufficient. Nothing needs to extend this. Nothing needs to shorten it. The idea of maintaining this state does not arise. Maintenance implies fragility. Fragility implies risk. There is no risk being sensed. The moment does not depend on perfection. It does not depend on silence. Even small disturbances would be included without disruption. That inclusion creates ease, not comfort in a dramatic sense, just absence of strain. The mind remains available but unoccupied. It does not search for insight. It does not construct meaning. Meaning would introduce direction. Direction would introduce tension. None of that forms. There is simply continuation, not towards something, not away from something, just continuation. Awareness remains open-ended. It does not close around experience. It does not narrow into focus. It stays broad enough to hold whatever appears. Nothing stands out as more significant. Nothing fades into irrelevance. Everything shares equal presence. This equality stabilizes perception. It removes hierarchy. It removes preference. Without preference, there is no movement toward or away. The moment does not lean. It does not resolve. It does not transform into something else. It remains, and remaining feels natural, not impressive, not profound, just natural. For now, nothing shifts dramatically, nothing concludes, nothing intensifies. Experience continues without effort, without demand, without instruction, and nothing needs to be done with it. Gradually, the distinction becomes less noticeable, not because something ends, but because it stops standing apart. There is no marked transition, no internal signal indicating a shift. The atmosphere remains the same, yet it feels less defined. Presence does not withdraw. It simply blends. What once felt open now feels ordinary, not reduced, not diminished, just integrated. Attention resumes its familiar movement, not abruptly, not with urgency, just naturally. Thoughts appear more freely. They do not interrupt. They do not disrupt what remains. They settle into the same space without changing its quality. There is no sense of losing something subtle, no feeling that a state is dissolving. It feels more like continuity than departure. The openness does not collapse. It does not retreat. It becomes background. Breathing continues without change. The body remains steady. There is no need to adjust anything. Experience feels even. The mind does not attempt to reflect. There is no impulse to analyze what occurred. Nothing asks to be interpreted. If meaning were to form, it would feel unnecessary. So it does not form. The moment does not become a reference. It does not turn into something to remember. It passes into the ordinary without leaving emphasis. Yet nothing feels absent. The usual movements return. Small thoughts, minor plans, subtle anticipations. They arise without friction. There is no sharp contrast between before and now. No sense of crossing a boundary. Life continues without interruption. This continuation does not undo anything. Nothing is preserved. Nothing is lost. The ease that was present does not require maintenance. It remains available without needing attention. There is no desire to stay longer, no fear of moving on. Movement does not feel like departure. The sense of self becomes clearer again, not heavier, not more rigid, just familiar. There is no need to carry something forward, no insight to protect, no clarity to hold. Nothing requests loyalty. Nothing asks to be revisited. Attention continues its quiet rhythm. It moves between thoughts, between sensations, between small intentions forming. The movement feels lighter, less compelled, less tight. There is no dramatic realization, no sense of having completed something. The space that once felt distinct no longer stands apart. It blends, becomes unremarkable. This unremarkable quality feels natural, not like loss, not like fading, just normal. Nothing claims significance. Nothing frames itself as important. And yet there is no sense of incompleteness. The moment does not require acknowledgement. It does not require gratitude. It does not need to be named. Naming would make it smaller, so it remains unnamed. Thoughts continue to move. They carry small intentions, practical reminders, ordinary concerns. They unfold without rush. The quiet remains underneath, not as a separate layer, but as something diffused. It does not guide. It does not instruct. It simply accompanies. Listening softens. It does not stop. It becomes less deliberate. Presence becomes indistinguishable from ordinary awareness. There is no need to return here. Returning implies leaving. Nothing was left. Nothing was entered. It was never separate. And now everything continues without emphasis. The mind does not grasp at what remains. It does not label it as calm or clarity. Doing so would change it, so it does nothing. This non-action allows the continuation to feel effortless. The simplicity of this is easy to overlook. Nothing announces itself as complete. Nothing claims significance. The moment does not feel unfinished. It does not wait for something else to happen. Attention resumes its usual flow, gently, without rush. But something about that flow feels less strained, less driven. There is a subtle softness that does not need to be explained. It does not interfere with thinking. It does not interfere with doing. It simply remains. There is no sense that something meaningful occurred. Meaning would pull it into narrative. Narrative would demand memory. This moment refuses both. Life continues as it always has. Thoughts arise. Actions follow. Time moves. Nothing stands apart from it. Nothing asks to be carried forward. Everything proceeds without needing to preserve what was never separate to begin with.